Hey, good afternoon and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the studios of the American Guns and Glory Network here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related political issues, and self-defense issues. Fired Up with Bob Irwin is on YouTube with a new show every Thursday at 5 p.m. At least it's on YouTube at the moment. They're playing with all the gun shows. It does stay online forever. So if I say something you missed a show, you can always pick it up on our website, or if it's on YouTube, still pick it up on YouTube to see what I said that turned out to be absolutely wrong 3 years later. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners at noon every Saturday on the Nevada Talk Network. It's 10 stations throughout the state of Nevada. You can find the station near you at KELY1230.com. That's on our website if you need to get that information. It broadcasts every nook and cranny in the state of Nevada. And they all come on at the same time. It's a simulcast through all the stations. If you have a question or comment, you can send an email to me at bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, I will respond to your call either by email or text or telephone. A question directed to our guests can be sent to that same place, and I will forward it to the guest, or unless the guest, of course, gives his own, which I expect our political guests we're having on now. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week, and we usually cover several of those in this show. This one is a little different. Because my guest is running for Congress, we decided to dedicate this show to what is going on in the federal government. My guest today is a really interesting fellow. Congressional candidate in District 4, Dave Gibbs, is here sitting with me. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you, Bob. Thanks for having me on.
We sit on the board of a conservative organization together, is how we actually met. But here is where I asked the guest for his background, and Dave's background is startling, to say the least. So you've got about 6 or 8 minutes. We're going to start talking about issues. But would you tell the listeners who Dave Gibbs is?
Glad to. My name is David Gibbs. I am a candidate for Congress in CD4. I graduated from the Air Force Academy. I had wanted to be a pilot since I was a youngster, and went off and got my wings back in 1980 and spent 25 years in the Air Force, most of it flying airplanes. I flew B-52s, FB-111s. And then in 1999, I had the opportunity to command one of the Predator squadrons up at what is now Creech Air Force Base, very early on in the unmanned aviation business. Did that for a couple of years, and then spent a couple of years at a higher level and retired from the Air Force in 2003. I've remained in the unmanned aircraft industry ever since in various capacities, and today I'm a program director for a defense contractor, and we support unmanned maintenance on unmanned aircraft at various locations overseas. So it's very involved in what's been going on with the Department of Defense ever since I left the Air Force. I've never stopped in one way or another. I have served in both the military and in the civilian world, served our country and our national defense, and continue to do so today, and really enjoy that kind of work. I got involved in Nevada politics shortly after I retired from the Air Force, and again in various capacities with the county party, serving as chairman in 2011 and 12. I've served on the executive board in the county, the executive committee for the Nevada Republican Party for the state, and also on the state central committee. I've been a member there since 2006. As Bob mentioned, I'm on the board of directors of a conservative political organization that promotes and conservative candidates to support business opportunities here in Nevada, and enjoy doing that a lot as well. I got into this race for Congress because I took a look at what was going on in Washington. I also took a look at who the other candidates were in this race and decided two things. Number one, I can do a really good job representing the people of District 4. because my focus will be on them. It won't be on the special interests. I don't have any money from political action organizations, from any PACs. I don't have money from the high rollers in Washington. My donations and the money that I've raised for my campaign has come from Nevadans and from family members. And so that is where my focus will lie, is with all of the folks in District 4. I am a conservative. I do not like the reach the government has been putting on all of our people. One of the things that I see on a regular basis is intrusion into our daily lives, not just in business, but just in our personal lives as well. And that's one of the things that bothers me, and part of the reason I got in this race. We need to continue to, for lack of a better phrase, drain the swamp. We're seeing a lot of the investigations that are happening in Department of Justice and the FBI and various other organizations throughout Washington. Is we're seeing that the heavy hand of government and what they're doing to the American people, to me, that is not what the intent of our Constitution is, and that should not be the direction of our government. We need to remind the folks in Washington that they work for us, not the other way around. So that will be my focus should I get elected to Congress. One of the other things that I'm asking for Republicans to take a look at as we look at the primary is, it's not necessarily just that part of it, but who is the best candidate that can beat the Democrat nominee in November? This is a challenging district because the Democrats do have a majority, but it is winnable, and I believe I can win it. I think I have both the experience and the judgment to do good work for the folks in District 4. I believe that whoever the Democrats nominate, I can compete very well against, and get the voters to understand that I would be a better congressman for them and for the rest of the people in District 4 than the Democrat would be. So that's a big reason I'm in the race.
I agree with all of that. When I discovered I could get Mr. Gibbs to come on the air, I tried to look up the current bills that are in Congress to be voted on that have to do with restriction of firearms and so forth. And what I found really was the talk of Dianne Feinstein and Nancy Pelosi and several others about safety measures and things they want to do to restrict or ban possession of this or that or the other thing are not yet in the form of bills. It is political rhetoric, basically. So I'm going to get into a couple of those areas to see what our would-be congressman thinks of those as being useful to prevent crime, to prevent school shootings, and whether they're constitutional or not, which is, of course, the big issue here. The reason some foreign countries, Australia and England and so forth, have been able to get rid of guns when they wanted to and destroy them, and their crime rates, of course, have gone through the roof. But they don't have a constitution that has a Second Amendment, which clearly says right to keep and bear arms. So the Pelosi and Feinstein are talking about, Pelosi more in your case, banning assault weapons, which they consider to be anything that now has a single feature that are on a military gun, such as a threaded muzzle or a pistol grip or the old ban had 2 or more features. Now we're down to 1 feature, and it covers anything that is semi-automatic, rifles, shotguns, and pistols. Basically anything that's got these features that make it look mean. So the question is, with that type of bill, negating a moment the political things with the Second Amendment, we're going to get there. Do you think restrictions or outlawing those types of guns will actually reduce crime and school shootings in particular? Because that's what this is aimed at, of course.
I don't see that. Our history has not shown that actually would happen. And you mentioned England and Australia, where they've done a lot of they've banned a lot of the guns. It hasn't necessarily had the results that everybody expected. Crime has gone up. And I will admit, yeah, maybe the number of shootings haven't gone up, but in England, in London specifically, they're now looking to ban knives on public, people basically carrying knives in public, because stabbings and the number of murders from stabbings have actually caused London to have more murders than New York City has. And so it's just a case of that has not solved the problem that they're talking about.
Even the original assault weapon ban, which self-destructed after 10 years, there was no statistical showing that crime changed at all. It was, according to the statisticians, it was where it changed so slightly that it wasn't statistically valuable information. Additional proposal, and one probably more, we're hearing that from Nevada politicians too on this one, is to outlaw any magazine, the feeding device, a gun magazine, we talk in gun terms to people that don't do guns. I'm not talking about a printed magazine. A magazine is what you call a clip that goes in the gun that holds the cartridges, not the bullets, the cartridges. That outlawing, which would include turn-ins of any magazine, any feeding device that holds more than 10 cartridges. Some of the proposals are more than 7 cartridges. The first question would be fairly obvious to me, but do you believe criminals or terrorists are going to obey that law? If they got a magazine that holds too many shots, are they going to throw that away or only put 7 shots in their 20-shot magazine? So, never mind.
No.
It's a ridiculous question. I'm sorry, but this thing is so ridiculous.
It is one of the aspects of a lot of the folks who are advocates of gun control, is they figure if we just pass this law banning these magazines, sure, people will turn them in, we won't be selling them, and it never works that way. When you look at a lot of other instances where they've passed laws thinking, well, if we just pass this law and everybody will follow it, seatbelt laws, everybody all of a sudden will start wearing seatbelts. Well, no, they didn't.
No, they don't.
No.
Particularly when we're dealing with, you have this huge group of honest citizens who want to obey the law, and you have this smaller group, much smaller group of criminals or insane people who don't care. And do we expect that second group to follow the law? No, we can expect them to increase the crime rate because their victims won't have as many bullets or won't have a gun in their home. Like I say, it's a ridiculous question to ask, will criminals and terrorists obey the law? Of course not. So who does it affect? It disarms the private citizen who's trying to defend his house. That's why the crime rates in Australia, England, and so forth went up.
And one of the things that we have not seen a lot of discussion about in this regard, criminals versus law-abiding citizens who have guns for self-protection and for defense of their homes and their families, is we haven't seen a lot of statistics or a lot of discussion about how many crimes have been stopped, how many home invasions have been deterred, how many criminals have been apprehended because of a citizen with a gun.
Thousands upon thousands.
Exactly.
There was just an article out today that apparently the medical people in Washington have been actually tracking that, but not publishing the numbers.
The CDC, I heard, has been doing it, and yeah, they've been hiding that number.
They've been doing it for a while.
It is a significantly higher number than people probably would even imagine.
And that's part of the deep state theory that they're only putting out information that helps them. But another proposal is to raise the age to purchase or to possess, depending on which left-wing politician we're talking to have a firearm at all, to 21 or even 24 years old. We've run across that here in Nevada when we have our goofy law that says you have to be 21 to buy a pistol from a gun dealer. We only have to be 18 to possess one. And then if you buy a gun for your child who's working as a security guard at 19, that's actually a violation of somebody's theory of the law. Raising the age for purchase or possession is a huge problem because we have all these military folks
Right.
who are 18, 19, 20 years old. In many states, they're allowed to drink. In a lot of states now, they're allowed to vote. And they're allowed to go over and get their head shot off in the Middle East. And yet, they're not allowed to have a pistol when they come home because somehow now they're responsible teenagers. Obviously, the complexities of that are going to be a giant problem.
Number one, it doesn't make sense, as you mentioned, for somebody who's 18 years old and can join the military and go fight for our country. Then he comes home and he or she is not allowed to buy a weapon. To me, that doesn't make any sense at all. The other part that goes along with that is if you have these kinds of laws, that means that you have to figure out a way to enforce those laws. And so when you see somebody who's in that category, say a 20-year-old with a gun, now you've got to figure out, well, was that person in the military? What are the other waivers? Vermont has passed a law, but they have a number of waivers. Florida has a number of waivers in the laws that they've passed. And so does that mean every time you see somebody, somebody's got to stop that person and go, are you legal to have this gun? That creates a lot of complexities, and what is the proof that you've got to come up with? Do you have to have a military ID that shows, yes, I am in the military or I was in the military? And so there are a lot of, it opens up a lot of doors for abuse and for misinterpretation and creates the potential for lawsuits and also for citizens being unjustly arrested or having their property taken away without due process.
And this is, I have to explain it, people, this is a big problem if this happens on the federal level. On the state level, if you don't like the gun laws in California, you can move to Nevada.
Right.
And now if you don't like the laws the Democrats are going to put on us in Nevada, if they get the chance, you can move to Wyoming or Idaho or. Once they do this for the United States, there ain't no place to move. You can't export the gun. That's already illegal to export firearms or import them to buy them from Mexico. You're going to be just out of luck. So it will be, most of them, I've heard a lot of advocating, I'm going to take my now to be illegal gun and bury it in the backyard and so forth. What good is that going to do? You can't use it for self-defense anyway. You're still going to be a victim. Grab the shovel when somebody breaks into your house. The next one is suppressors, silencers as they call them on TV. A device designed to muffle the sound of a firearm. There was, prior to the shooting at Stoneman Douglas, a bill in Congress or an ATF decision about to be made that would de-NFA suppressors, silencers. They're used in an incredibly small amount of crime, always by career criminals if they are being used in crime. And it was called the Hearing Protection Act, and it's still there. Congressman Ryan pulled it after the Stoneman Douglas shooting because everybody wants to blame the gun instead of the gunner for this thing. But they were about to become legal under federal law, and they're used for hunting. They're used in, one of my defendants now had a silencer in a alleged crime. That was merely designed to be quiet so he didn't upset the neighbors and spook the other game animals while he was shooting. And it was a legal silencer, but it is another involvement in the case. But that's why people have them, so they don't lose their hearing. If you talk to any range masters with my career level or thereabouts, we're all deaf. We all shout at each other every time we go to a meeting because we can't hear anything. Would have been nice. But anyway, if we remove suppressors or don't, would that make any difference in the Florida school shooting?
It wouldn't make difference
There
in any
was
shooting.
one-
I mean, part of the issue is all it does, it means more people get to hear it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can still hear when somebody has a suppressor. It's not like it's a total, the gun's being shot and nobody hears anything.
And
But
one
at the
of
same time,
the big arguments for this was that in cities where they've installed these shot systems where they can hear and triangulate automatically where a gunshot
Right.
was fired, that then the bad guys would use silencers because they couldn't be spotted on ShotSpotter. ShotSpotter doesn't listen for gunshot sound. It reads changes in air pressure. I don't want to give away any super trade secrets here, but a gun with a silencer, they pick up just as fast as it didn't have a silencer. It's not the sound it's hearing, it's the pressure it's reading. In any case, the other issue here that is, and we may part company on this one day, but there's a big change coming down that was on the table, and it was also withdrawn temporarily till they got over the shooting in Florida, which none of us will ever get over. But a proposal, again, this was a federal proposal to make all states honor all other states' concealed carry permits. We have that with retired officers carry or law enforcement carry right now, where you can carry in any state theoretically. Some areas still aren't honoring those, by the way. If you're an on-duty or retired law enforcement officer, try carrying your gun in the city of Chicago. They'll take it away from you and arrest you. And then they'll let you go and keep your gun. City of Chicago just decided they're not going to do that, even though it is federal law. Of course, they do a lot of things that are against federal law, but the reciprocity being ordered by the federal government, we were talking just before we went on the air, I see that to be a trap. The people that believe that that'll be a good thing, the NRA being one of the main ones, and I take issue with them on this particular subject, and I want you to weigh in. That's why I'm going here. The states, of course, that don't want people carrying will immediately sue in federal court, and it will take 2 years to get to the U.S. Supreme Court, which will decide that the state has the right to regulate firearms within its own borders.
Okay.
It's a loser. But assuming that it could pass, then we're asking the federal government to regulate interstate carry of firearms with concealed carry permits. So what if then one day in the future there'll be a Democratic president? We've had them in the past. A Democratic Congress, we have one in the past. And so they decide, well, these gun guys have asked us to regulate concealed carry permits across state lines, and we're going to do just that. We think everybody ought to have insurance if they carry a gun. Is that reasonable? If you're going to carry a gun, that you have liability insurance? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, here it comes. And requalify every 3 months, and. We're asking the federal government to regulate something right now that's left to the states. It just, to me, it's the wrong direction. And you could jump in here if you want.
Well, my big thing is, and you raise probably the biggest issue, which is if you give the federal government the opportunity to just stick their nose under the tent or whatever kind of cliche you want to put on it,
yeah.
They're going to keep moving and moving until finally they're completely in, and they will continue to build it, and they will continue, like you said, I fully expect, as we've seen with other restrictions that they've placed on individual rights, that, okay, we're going to do A, and then we're going to, well, let's, like you said, let's make everybody have insurance. And the point, you regulate it to the point that almost nobody can comply with all of the restrictions and all the requirements. And the next thing you know, their goal is
hire a personal lawyer just to get you through the paperwork.
Or that's right. They make it so burdensome that the next thing you know, nobody can comply, and they've reached their ultimate goal, which is nobody has CCWs.
This is Congress that passed a law that any puddle was a navigable waterway, right?
There you go.
So I see that as a huge danger. And fortunately, I don't see that actually happening because the states that are now, we're going to tell California you have to honor Nevada permits or Florida permits, or, then what happens in states that don't issue permits? You live in Arizona, you don't have to have a permit to carry a concealed weapon. You can carry one if you want. Their law is if you can legally own the gun, it's called constitutional carry. If you can legally own a gun, you can carry concealed. They have that law in Wyoming and in varying degrees in 11 states now. You know what happened to the crime rate in Arizona? Nothing. When anybody could be legally carrying a gun, that can legally own a gun, it didn't allow criminals to, it didn't allow 9-year-olds to have guns. It allowed illegal aliens, because they're illegal aliens, couldn't carry a gun, etc. I'm sorry, undocumented worker, I guess. What are we at now? Anyway, I don't want to go there with this discussion. we don't do immigration law here. But the if you believe the guy you just accidentally rear-ended is carrying a gun, likely in his car, they can do that in Nevada. You can carry a handgun in your car in Nevada without restrictions. So are you going to immediately yell up and start beating on his windows and scream and yell and threaten to beat his brains in for stopping in front of you and making you run into his car? No, you're going to be polite. An armed society is a polite society. We really don't have the shootings at car wrecks and things like that
No.
the naysayers predicted. People, honest citizens, are safe with guns. Criminals are going to carry anyway. Now you can weigh in.
Well, the biggest thing is the Supreme Court has ruled that the individual has a right to carry guns, has a right to bear arms. It's in the Constitution.
Yes.
I am
In
not.
his house.
Pardon?
In his house.
Yes. But I'm not, I am opposed to anything that's going to infringe on anybody's Second Amendment individual rights to carry guns. And the regulations that the federal government is looking to place on it, to me, infringe on that. And so that's one of the biggest issues I think that we need to keep an eye on. The Bill of Rights is there to protect the rights of the individual, not the rights of the government.
Exactly.
And if the government begins to tinker at the edges of any one of those Bill of Rights, at some point they will start tinkering with the others as well. And then there's no stopping what they can or what they will try to do. As far as we see discussions going on about what is really free speech, what is the right to peaceably assemble.
Yeah, we got that kid now going to court apparently in Reno because he wore a shirt with a Gladstone flag on it that said protect the Second Amendment,
Right.
and he was barred from school.
So there's a lot of, that's the thing that we got, that's the issue we got to watch out for, is the liberals pushing to slowly diminish our individual rights.
And that's how they're generally doing it, state by
Yeah.
state, getting states to change their laws and pushing gun bills, restrictive gun bills through various states till they have all the states, or till the only place we can live is in Idaho, which is nice. I'm not knocking Idaho, but I don't think we'll all fit.
Yeah.
So it's constitutional guys make good congressmen. With your background in the military, and I consider the Air Force to be the military still.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's close.
My Air Force brethren will be happy to hear that.
Yeah. I wish you all the best in
Thank
your
you.
quest. There's the Democratic opposition in that district is really scary.
It is. They are all very progressive, left-leaning candidates who advocate everything from free college tuition to everybody, for everybody, to universal health care for everybody. All of those things that sound really good until they try to figure out
Who
how to
pays
pay for it.
The rich. We'll make the rich.
And well, and the other part of it that comes along with is then they get to write the regulations as to how that all gets dealt with, and you wind up with situations like we're dealing with in England, where their parents are fighting to get their toddler out of the hospital after the government has said, no, we're going to take him off medical support. You can't take him to Italy to have the doctors in Italy take a look at him.
I mean,
And so-
the intrusiveness of the government is beyond the scope of this show, but
Yes.
it's coming in guns, so don't fall for it, Mr. Gibbs. I appreciate
Thank
you
you very
coming
much.
in. Delightful.
Check out my website, Gibbs, the number 4, Nevada.com. If you got any questions, you can email me at dave@gibbs, the number 4, Nevada.com. And I ask for your vote on June 12th in the primary election. Bob, thanks for having me. It's
You're
a pleasure.
more
to be
than
here.
welcome. You know, I was amazed when I saw your resume. I had no idea you were that. Wow, that'd be great. We'll be back next week, around 5 o'clock on Thursday with a brand new show on our website, firedupwithboberwin.com, and on YouTube, at least for now. Thanks for coming in.
My
We'll
pleasure.
see you all next week.